Hey, what is up guys, my name is Luis. Today we're comparing the C58 against the Cold War AK-47. So both these weapons have pretty much the same specs, so I think it will be interesting to see which one of these are actually the best. In this video you will see a comparison with stats, best attachments, recoil patterns and more. If this is your first time here, I would really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button, as I make tips and tricks in Warzone and much more. Let's look at the weapon stats here. The C58 has an ADS speed of 292 milliseconds and the AK-47 comes in at 267 milliseconds. Movement speed of the C58 is 4.78 meters per second and the AK-47 clocks in at 4.76 meters per second. So when looking at the reload speed, the C58 reloads in 2 seconds flat and the AK-47 reloads in 2.15 seconds. The rate of fire for the C58 is 553 rounds per minute and the AK-47 comes in at 600 rounds per minute. So as we can see so far, they are pretty similar, but let's check out the damage profile. The C58 does 59 damage to the head, which means it's going to take 5 shots to down a fully plated enemy. The AK-47 does 58 damage to the head, which means it's also going to take 5 shots to down a fully plated enemy. Note that this is the damage for the first base damage fall off, and they both offer the same range. Looking at the second damage drop off, we can see that the C58 offers more damage than the AK-47. Looking at the damage for the chest, stomach and extremities, we can see that the C58 offers slightly more damage. With the second damage drop off, we can see that the C58 puts out more damage overall than the AK-47. Let's take a look at the TTK for these weapons. The C58 comes in at 434 milliseconds to the head and the AK-47 comes in at 400 milliseconds. For the chest, the C58 comes in at 542 milliseconds and the AK-47 comes in at 500 milliseconds. So since we are talking about the long range builds for this video, let's take a look at the long range TTK, and by that I mean the TTK after the first damage drop off. The C58 then comes in at 473 milliseconds to the head and the AK-47 comes in at 441 milliseconds. For the chest, the C58 comes in at 651 milliseconds and the AK-47 comes in at 600 milliseconds. So let's check out the recoil pattern. We have the C58 to the left and the AK-47 to the right. So by looking at the recoil pattern, they might seem quite similar, but note that the C58 stops way before the AK-47. The AK-47 has much more vertical recoil, and also note the spread between each bullet. The C58 is definitely going to be much easier to control than the AK-47. And let's also take a look at the visual recoil, as this is a factor I think is quite important. As you can see, the AK-47 has significant more visual recoil through the scope, making it harder to track your targets. The C58 is pretty stable, and with the low fire rate it is very easy to track and correct your aim. And let's look at the attachments, and I'm going to show you what the differences are after the weapons are fully kitted out. So for the C58 we take the agency suppressor, task force barrel, 3x scope, 55 round mag, and I use the airborne elastic wrap for that boost in ADS speed. I personally don't feel like the gun needs the field agent grip to help with the recoil, but if you want to use that, I would take off the rear grip. For the AK-47 we take the GRU suppressor, RPK barrel, 3x scope, 60 round mag, and I use the GRU elastic wrap here as well. You might want to take the Spetsnaz grip for the AK-47, as it does help out quite a bit with the recoil. But test both builds out and you will quickly find out which one is the better one for you. So let's see what weapon changes this actually gives us compared to a stock weapon. For the range, both weapons are gaining 49% range. The ADS speed will always increase as we increase the bullet velocity and range, so here the C58 goes up to 400 milliseconds and the AK-47 goes up to 366 milliseconds. For the bullet velocity, the C58 ends up at 1192 meters per second and the AK-47 ends up at 1156 meters per second. Let's jump into my final thoughts on these weapons. So both these weapons are very comparable when it comes to damage profile and fire rate. The C58 has slightly more damage, but then again lower fire rate than the AK-47. So since we're looking at the best long range build for these weapons, damage is not everything. The AK-47 can feel very unstable even up close, and at range using the 3x optic, the scope bounces around a lot and gives you a lot of visual recoil. The C58 on the other hand has very little recoil in comparison, very stable through the scope, and the fire rate of that weapon actually helps out controlling that recoil. So if you are speaking strictly long range builds, I think the C58 is a better choice for most people. The AK-47 can be very hard to control, and when you're challenging at let's say 50 meters plus, it can quickly get very unhinged. If I were to pick between these two weapons right now, I would take the C58 for that long range. That said, if you are like me and you like to run with a sniper rifle, make sure that you check out this video where I went through the top 5 sniper support weapons for season 4. Let me know in the comments which one of these weapons you prefer. That is it for this video guys, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't, and as always I will see you legends suggestions in the next one.